Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers and happy President's Day. Got a great show on tap. Andy's got the rundown.
Who's the president that you most admire? We put that question to presidential historian Clay Jenkinson. You might be surprised at his answer. Sam?
And a special pundit panel today for President's Day. John Gwaltney, Dick Gammick, and George Flint. It's all coming up next on the all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by Charter Communication.
The Abowed family has an appetite for dialogue. Agree or disagree, have the conversation. All opinions are welcome. Since 1977, Adele's.
Catch a straight, dine at 8. Lucky you. Lucky you. Dance till 1. Have some fun. Lucky you. Lucky you. Taste the shrimp. Have a sip. Try the pool. Play it cool. At the Sienna Hotel Spa Casino. Lucky you. Yeah!
In business, the key to success is not the quantity of your clients, it's the quality of your clients. Almost all companies will tell you they want more sales, but what they really need are quality customers who pay their bills on time. With Employer Link's client vendor screening program, we provide comprehensive reports regarding the financial performance of your corporate prospects, customers, and vendors. Build your business with great clients and vendors. Call Employer Links today at 883-3733.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years. Call 882-1700 to see what we can do for your organization.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad, political analyst Ande Engleman on No Holds Barred Political Forum. Now, from the News 4 Broadcast Center, here's Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, welcome to a very special President's Day edition. And we're thrilled to have come to our table Clay Jenkinson, who is a scholar, presidential historian. Always a pleasure to have you here. So right off the bat, let's start out with the easy questions. Weapons of mass destruction related activities.
Euphemism. One of the great euphemisms in American history. I was really impressed because President Bush in the State of the Union message had to address that. He addressed it in a way that made the American people less anxious about it than they had been before. That's what you expect of a president. It was, I think, a lie, but that's not the issue here.
It isn't?
And what would happen, you were saying earlier, if it's a republic?
Well, no, I do think that, I'm a Jefferson scholar primarily, and I think that Jefferson would say that if the President of the United States led us into war on a false premise, either knowingly or because he didn't know what he should have known, that is the most outrageous thing that can ever happen, because war is the gravest of all possible events, and that therefore he should be investigated and probably impeached. Now, we don't know whether the president was aware of all this or not. We have to have a hunch on that. But I think Jefferson would say, if you go to war on false premises, you have violated the most sacred code of civilization, and that should be a national crisis for the people, for the legislative branch, for your intelligence services, for your idea of America, and for whoever's in charge at the time.
You're a presidential scholar, and I seem to recall that during World War II, actually we had an election in there, and the Republicans were highly critical of FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and how he was handling the war. And yet today we're hearing that if you criticize the president during a time of war, it's treason.
That's nonsense. You're right. we need a robust democracy in which there is very powerful debate about weapons of mass destruction, about America's place in the world, about who we think we are, and do we think other nations can be democratic like ourselves, how we respond to 9/11. We need extremely robust debates which the world will look at and think, this must be a free country because look at the way they can talk to each other about issues of this sort. When we start self-censoring because we don't want to be criticized by the other party, and we form a kind of patriot party that says, do what you have to do, that's the death of America. So I think we're getting way too little public debate over this, not too much.
Okay, well, let's talk about this too. We got one of these little TiVo personal video recorder devices, and that's allowed us to tape all the late night shows and be able to just watch the introductory segments where invariably Jay Leno and David Letterman, et cetera, talk about politics, Conan O'Brien. And there's been a complaint that the American public, for the most part, gets their political information not from news, not from the newspaper, not from TV, not from the debates, but from late night talk show hosts. But you know what's funny in watching them? There's a lot of news in those programs, don't you think?
There is, if by news you mean sarcasm about current situations. I mean, they basically get it right. Dean overreacted after Iowa. Kerry's a little wooden. Bush has problems with spelling and grammar. But that's not debate about democracy. That's just fun and games. And if it's true that the American people are largely getting their political discourse from comedy talk shows, that would be a very grave business indeed. And I don't think it's actually true. I think that that's a kind of convenient way of looking at it. People love that stuff. You and I love that stuff. But I don't think that most Americans, when they go into a voting booth, think, boy, Leno sure had it right about that Dean or something.
You know what's funny is I think because they are going after everybody, because that is, they're not taking a position, they're not politically one way or the other. In a way, it's kind of surprising when you watch these shows back to back. You'd be surprised at how much actual real discourse there is, certainly not in depth, but they're certainly pointing out the right and the wrong of each day's news events. And of course, Johnny Carson did that for 30 years.
We need those commentaries. I'm all for those commentaries, but they're no substitute for talking to your neighbor and saying, well, should America bully the world and make the world safe for a democracy? Or,
and isn't there a place for humor in campaigns? Hasn't
absolutely.
there always been
Well, the
humor
American
in
people see through these people. They know they're just pompous political mouthpieces, and the comedy shows deflate that, and I think that's very healthy in a democracy. There are countries where that sort of comedy would not be permitted, so I think that's a sign of the health of our culture, but it's not political discourse.
Does it bother you of how few people are watching the debates? As many as there have been, that if you said to the average person, what is Al Sharpton running on, what is Dennis Kucinich running on, that they would probably not even know who these people are.
It does bother me. I mean, I don't want to be a Jeremiah and talk about woe is America, because I actually think things are going quite well in certain regards. But I think that there's a lack of civility. I think there's a terrible lack of civics training in our culture. And I think that we don't know how much is at stake. And you would think if ever there was a time when people realized what was at stake, this would be it. We have the Patriot Act, which I regard as one of the most unfortunate acts of legislation in American history, largely without public debate. We have our Guantanamo Bay, where we have suspended habeas corpus and violated the rule of law in the world, largely without public debate. The president was probably reelected on Thanksgiving Day when he flew into Baghdad for Thanksgiving dinner. That's not the way to elect a president of this country.
Okay, but let me ask you this. In reality, when times were perhaps more civil, were they really? Was that not just the public face? Somebody got on a train and traveled around the country and got off the train, waved to everybody, had a speech, and then got back on the train? I mean, was all the action not going on in the back rooms in those days?
Somewhat, but look at Theodore Roosevelt, my current favorite president. He engaged us in a national debate about patriotism, about America's place in the world, about what sort of nation we were going to be, whether we were going to face capitalism down and get it in control, or whether we were going to let it run away with the country. Very high level. If you read what was going on in that era, we were talking about civil service reform as if it were the Super Bowl. I mean, there was a time when politics mattered more to us. Now, I think it's healthy that the American people hate politics and would rather do something else. I do think that's very healthy, but we have to face this.
On that note, we'll take a break. We'll be right back here on President's Day with Clay Jenkinson. We'll be right back.
Atlantis is cooking up a party. It's every diner's paradise. Toucan Charlie's Buffet and Grill, voted Reno's best buffet by locals year after year. Experience the Mongolian barbecue, new Asian station, and sumptuous exhibition stations filled with fresh entrees, salads, and desserts. Try the Friday night seafood buffet and Sunday champagne brunch. Atlantis.
Would you like to savor a Trento pork chop? Or maybe pasta rags with grilled chicken? Hugo's Tuscan Grill at D'Andrea is a celebration of color, flavor, and freshness. Each dish is created from natural, wholesome foods that is delicious and nutritious. Hugo's is a comfortable restaurant with breathtaking city views. If you enjoy great food and good company, visit us here at Hugo's. It's the best that dining can be. 2900 South D'Andrea Parkway in Sparks.
Allegra is Northern Nevada's #1 offset printing and digital copying facility.
From disc to destination, Allegra utilizes tomorrow's technology today. We specialize in booklets, catalogs, manuals, newsletters, stationery, and envelopes.
Xerox, Docutech, 4-color printing with Heidelberg Speedmaster, desktop publishing and design, graphic services, pickup and delivery.
If you need printing, Allegra can do it. From disc to destination.
To experience the royal cuisine of India, you need some serious magic or simply transport yourself to India Garden, right here in Reno, where you'll discover Indian specialties refined over centuries. Sikh kebab, tandoori dishes cooked in our own tandoor oven, biryani specialties, curries, fresh-baked Indian bread, over a dozen vegetarian dishes, even dishes rare to India like dosa, South Indian-style crepes. India Garden off South Virginia near Sports West. We are India.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad and Ande Engleman.
And a special program here on this President's Day with Clay Jenkinson, the author of the book Thomas Jefferson, the Man of Light, and we'll get a tight shot of that for you here. Clay, welcome back onto the program.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, so revelations that Strom Thurmond fathered a child who happened to be an African American. And this was revealed after his death. Any surprise there?
Well, I was surprised, yes, but delicious irony. You know, the more righteous a person is, the harder and more interestingly he falls. You know, the evangelical preachers are usually caught in brothels near New Orleans. The scandals that attend people usually come from where they are most righteous, most puritanical, most unbending, most intolerant. And I think that there's a psychological reason for that, but it didn't surprise me at all, and it kind of puts it all in perspective. Thomas Jefferson, Sally Hemings, Strom Thurmond, African American. You know, the issue of race is so potent in this culture, but the fact is, when you put two very different peoples together under highly tense circumstances, one of the results will be sexual congress, and this is a theme through American history that has not been attended to enough. But I think a lot of people smiled when they heard this news about Strom Thurmond.
I did. How's that for honesty? We have an issue going on right now in our state. It has to do with the Board of Regents, who decided that they are essentially their own branch of government, and violated Nevada's open meeting law by holding this closed meeting and taking action in secret and so forth. Thomas Jefferson would have abhorred such behavior, would he not?
Well, he believed in decency. You know, he was a process man, and I think great men and women are process people. Let's do it right. What are the rules? Let's play by those rules. Let's make sure that this is done so that we build consensus and not try to, in a serpentine way, go around the existing set of codes. So I think Jefferson would be appalled by this sort of thing. On the other hand, the Constitutional Convention in the summer of 1787 in Philadelphia began with a gag order. They locked the doors. No one was allowed to say a word about what was going on because they realized some things are too volatile to be in broadsides and in the public press. You can't talk about some things if there is scrutiny by muckrakers like yourselves at every turn.
Muckrakers. Finally, the truth is...
Senator Raggio would love this thought. You know?
All right, I want to go back to the national stage here.
Okay.
Interesting thing came up on Bill Maher's show last week, where he was saying that a Southern politician can win in the North, but a Northern politician can't win in the South. He asked the question why. Max Cleland said, well, because of the Civil War. Isn't it time for the South to get over this?
Well, you can say that all you want, Sam, but they just can't. And it's not that they can't get over it. I mean, that is true. There is that whole kind of weird rebel flag and war whoop and the South shall rise again ethos down there. But that's a sign of something deeper. There are fundamental sectional divisions in this country, and in a way the North just doesn't get it. The South is a kind of miasma of certain types of social and political energies and a history, a tragic history. It's America's only truly tragic zone. And I think that these two sections have never created the dialogue that would create a new national consensus. But we are, in a sense, we're no farther along than we were in 1850. The South has its agenda, the North has its agenda, and there's a very tense set of negotiations. Remember, in the last election, it was Bob Jones University at South Carolina, which was a defining moment for John McCain. Howard Dean nearly went down over the issue of the redneck rebel flag in the back of the pickup. These issues are extremely volatile, but they're sectional, they're not really about the Civil War any longer.
Is there any hope for us getting back together?
We need a leader. We need a leader like Theodore Roosevelt, because here's the thing that George Bush has failed, and Clinton failed at it too, but a great leader needs to be in love with the American common person and convince us convincingly that he is in love with the American common person. So George Bush grew after 9/11, I believe, and could have been a great president. But then he veered back to ideology and to the interests that elected him. If he had reached out to the whole country at that point and said, you know what, I'm going to thwart the group that brought me to power because I believe in some deeper concept of this country, he would have been one of the great presidents, but he failed. He had a lack of courage and imagination at a critical moment. The great presidents reach beyond their ideology and their party. The standard presidents get locked into the group that elected them, and I think that's George Bush.
But wasn't it also Theodore Roosevelt who wanted it kept safe that if any American anywhere in any country, people should be afraid to give him trouble because America will come and fight over that?
Yeah, of course. Roosevelt believed that we should be a muscular nation and that other nations should respect and, in certain cases, fear us. And I think right now, I mean, I'm a liberal on most issues, but security is going to be the issue of the first half of this century. And I think that any presidential candidate who can't convince us that we will be secure under his watch is doomed.
Okay, I got a quick question for you. You got to give me a less than a 20-second answer.
I will.
Is the Republican Party in danger right now of hemorrhaging into two between the no tax and spend portion of the party and the conservative, traditional Republicans who want to cut taxes and cut government?
Well, I think that the security issue has overwhelmed that. I think George Bush has been a reckless spender and has not shown the fiscal conservatism of Bill Clinton. There's an irony. But I don't think that the country can attend to that because I think they're worried about whether there's going to be another 9/11 and Bush is a spendthrift on every issue, particularly defense, but that he will get a pass on it. But I do believe that fissure is coming in the next presidency.
Clay Jenkinson, thrilled to have you here. Please come back again very soon.
My delight.
Yes,
Happy President's Day. We'll be back right after this.
We need that.
Before you head to Carson, take care of yourself with a visit to Tamarack Junction. Catch a hot cup of coffee and the morning news on one of our 32 TVs and enjoy the best food in South Reno. Tamarack Junction, your junction for fun. South Virginia and Amati Ranch Parkway.
The Abowed family has an appetite for dialogue. Agree or disagree, have the conversation. All opinions are welcome. Since 1977, Adele's.
Your home is an expression of all things comforting and familiar. For custom storage, you can count on California Closets to provide quality, value, and design integrity. The process is easy, combining your personal style with our organizing expertise. We care about what matters most to you, making your home functional and beautiful. California Closets, simplifying home and life since 1978. Call today for your complimentary design consultation.
When you sign up for Wells Fargo Free Checking, you get more than free checking. you get the freedom to bank when and where you want. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
Make your daily commute easy with breakfast or lunch at the Tamarack Junction. Enjoy daily specials, super fast service, and South Reno's freshest morning meals. Tamarack Junction, your junction for fun. South Virginia and Amati Ranch Parkway.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad and Ande Engleman.
Back on Nevada Newsmakers, I want to point out that we're taping the show in advance of President's Day, so Ande and I can take the day off, and we'll cover everything that happened at the caucuses here in the primary coming up tomorrow. Let's reintroduce our guests here on our pundit panel. George Flint with the Nevada Brothel Association. We've got John Gwaltney here with the school board, and Washoe County District Attorney Dick Gammick.
Okay, it's President's Day. We asked Clay Jenkinson who he most admired. As you heard, he said Theodore Roosevelt or Teddy Roosevelt. So I'm going to put the same question to you guys. Dick, who's the president that you most admire?
I think we've had a lot of fantastic presidents in this country in both parties over the years, but Abraham Lincoln has to jump out there because he had a lot of personal adversity in his life and his political career, and yet he stuck by his guns all the way through. Ultimately, it cost him his life, but he stuck by his guns all the way through, and everything he believed, and he followed up in it. And a lot of times he was out there all by himself because even his own people wouldn't support him.
Well, I'd have to agree that Lincoln was probably the number one, but if I went to modern day times, I tend to admire Jimmy Carter a lot. I've said that. I think he was a man of great character. I think he got caught in some really difficult situations, handled them with dignity, and set the nation. He had 13% inflation in his period of time. He called in the Federal Reserve and said, fix it. He knew he was going to lose the election when that happened. There was no way he could win with those steps taking place. That's character.
But he was a grade B president, I think, but he was a grade A human being.
I think he's a grade A human being.
What he's accomplished, since his presidency has been phenomenal.
I think he's a phenomenal human being.
George?
Jimmy Carter probably was the greatest ex-president we've had. I've lived through the administration of 12 presidents to go back to FDR. If you look closely, I'm wearing FDR's pin today. But my hero is Harry S. Truman. I was just a teenager when he became president. I watched that gutsy rascal from Missouri. He had the courage to get World War II brought to an end. He stood up against all kinds of people that he probably was inferior to in some ways in his own mind going in, but he brought this country through a really tough period after the war, and he's my champion, always will be.
Sam?
Ronald Wilson Reagan. I think that, I was not born in this country. I moved here in 1974, and I saw all the things that this country had gone through. And Ronald Reagan came in, and he stood for something. You knew exactly what he stood for, whether you liked him or you didn't like him or agreed with him or disagreed with him. You knew exactly what he stood for. There were some stumbles along the way, Iran-Contra probably being the biggest. But for the most part, I think he gave this country back its respect, and he showed that we could move forward boldly into the future. And I don't think we've turned out so badly since his presidency.
Interesting. I tend to agree with both Clay Jenkinson and with George. My favorites are Teddy Roosevelt and Harry S. Truman, mostly because these were men who stood up and took responsibility when they messed up. But they're also men who believed in high ideals and lived up to those, and that's what I like in a president, besides which they both balance the budget.
All right, Dick, you've been bristling for a couple of weeks now about this whole weapons of mass destruction scenario. What's bugging you?
Yeah, well, I think we're kind of losing track of what's been going on here in the world, and it's all focusing on this weapons of mass destruction issue. But we've got to remember here, and this is not, I am not against Muslim religion. I am not coming out against the general Muslim folks. That's their beliefs, that's great. But the radical Muslim people, the Al-Qaeda and others like them, they have two basic beliefs. The only good Christian is a dead Christian, and the only good American is a dead American. And until they get rid of all of us, they are not going to rest. So we started off with all these bombings that have happened to airplanes, all these bombings that have happened to military service clubs, to nightclubs, to all this stuff that's gone on all over the world for all these years. And I think President Bush has just finally taken a stand against terrorism. And it just happens to be that Afghanistan's caught it, and it happens to be that Iraq has caught it, and I don't think he's going to quit until he gets this terrorism thing done. And that's what really, really inflames me about France and Germany, because they've been blowing up just as much as anybody else.
I got to throw this question out here, because I've had this from some viewers, which is, if we would stop protecting Israel, would everybody in the Mideast leave us alone?
No.
No. Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not.
No, it's an excuse. There's no question about it. Protecting Israel is an excuse. But the fact of the matter is, the only disagreement I have with Dick here is that the image of where we are currently, first of all, we did not find weapons of mass destruction. That image is that we are picking on the Muslim world. And I think we need to be extremely careful, because if we line up Muslim versus Christian and we confirm what a number of our enemies are saying, we're the enemy because we picked on them first. That gets extremely dangerous as world wars go.
I agree with John totally. And I made it real clear. It's the radical Muslim groups, not the Muslim religion.
And we need to make sure everybody understands that.
And this isn't the first time we've dealt with radical groups. I mean, we've had the radical Japanese, we've had the radical Germans in the past. I mean, this is just a fact of life that we're going to have to deal with this, but this is the first president who's decided he's going to go after it full tilt.
Well, no, not necessarily. Remember last time we got hit by a radical group, you mentioned Japanese, was Pearl Harbor, that we went right into a world war over that one.
Well, no, true.
So
but, no, actually, I was talking
President
about...
Bush has kept it pretty refined, pretty restricted, and he knows who his targets are.
In the 70s, there were radical Japanese groups that we didn't go after.
Oh, okay, I was talking about 1941. Okay.
Yeah. You're a lot older than I am. Well, I got away with that.
That's it for time. Have a happy President's Day.
And we'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers.
It's America's largest historical district, and it's fun for the entire family. Virginia City is where the West comes alive every day, from train rides to gunslingers. Your gang can explore mines and interesting museums, visit historic saloons, and do some great shopping. Virginia City is the ultimate in family entertainment, and it's very affordable. Come up and stay overnight in our hotels, motels, and RV park. Virginia City, the Wild West at its best.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seem to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? Yeah, they do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, they saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
Atlantis is cooking up a party. It's every diner's paradise. Toucan Charlie's Buffet and Grill, voted Reno's best buffet by locals year after year. Experience the Mongolian barbecue, new Asian station, and sumptuous exhibition stations filled with fresh entrees, salads, and desserts. Try the Friday night seafood buffet and Sunday champagne brunch. Atlantis.
Sign up for Wells Fargo free checking. You get more than free checking. You get the freedom to bank when and where you want. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by Charter Communication.
A look at the Nevada caucus tomorrow.
We'll see you there.